Om Shri Ganeshaya Namaha. Om Ganganapate Namaha. Om Shri Ganeshaya Namaha. Om Ganganapate Namaha. Om Vakratunda Mahakaya Surya Koti Samaprabha Nirvignam Kurumedeva Sarvakarishu Sarvada. Om Shrim Brim Klim Glom Gam Ganapate Varavarada Sarvajanam Me Vashamanaya Swaha. Shri Mahaganadipate Namaha. Shri Sadgurubhyo Namaha. Shri Lakshmi Narayanaya Namaha. Shri Nar Narayanaya Namaha. Shri Swami Narayanaya Namo Namaha. Shri Radha Krishnaya Namo Namaha. Shri Hanumate Namo Namaha. Welcome to Nitya Satsang. Today is the 16th of February 2025. I want to offer my prostrations, Ananta Koti Namaskaram, to all the great sages and to Paramatma residing in the heart of every single being. With that bhavana, we are continuing to examine basic concepts from the Mandukya Upanishad, verse number 1. And to expound upon this further, there are some basic points in Advaita Vedanta that need to be clear with regards to the Jagrat Avastha, meaning the Avastha that we are in. We are awake right now. Then we go to sleep at night, then we are in deep sleep, and then we wake up again. These three Avastha, Avasthatraya, that is what it is called. So having said that, having talked about that a bit in the last several days, there are 7 points I want to make sure they are clear, just terminology. The first point is Brahman. The word Brahman means non-dual absolute, that which is eternally existing, that which is. That is called Akshara Brahma. Sometimes it is called Shivam. Sometimes it is called Turyam. There's lots of different ways to describe it. It is the ultimate reality that is beyond the forms of Prakriti. The Prakriti has created these forms that appear in the Jagrata Avastha. In the Jagrata Avastha, the names and forms that we see around us, just where we are right now, the form of the body. Sachin is wearing this shirt, there's some glasses, there's the form of the head, there's a form of the outside room, there's a form of the earth, form of the Brahman, form of the galaxy. That is called Rupam. Rupam means form. And the naming we have done through our mental mechanism, that is called Nama. So Nama and Rupa are the evolutes out of Maya that solidify the experiences of plurality. In Advait perspective, Advaitam, it would be say that this is also an expression of Brahman, or it is actually a reflection of Brahman through its own projective power, Avarana Shakti, Vikshepa Shakti. Those things we have talked a little bit about before, but we will talk more about that as time goes on. So Brahman is the ultimate reality. What does that mean? Ultimate means that which is paramarthika, that which is actually existing, as opposed to relative reality. We are living in relative reality, isn't it so? Look at our examination. Our avasthas change. Jagrat, Swapna, Shushupti, this change all the time. This is called relative reality. In Brahman, or Akshara Brahma, or Akshara Dham also it is called, that is absolute reality, that is changeless, meaning Sanatana. And it is beyond the attributes, meaning the attributes that have come out of Maya. It is transcendent to that layer of attributes. So everything else, including the phenomenal universe, is a manifestation of Maya, the cosmic illusion superimposed on Brahman. This is Advaita, basic points here. Make sure these are very clear. Right? It's a superimposition. This is called adhyasa. It is not actually there. It is superimposed. Well, who is superimposing it? The Brahman itself, by its own power, is superimposing itself within itself. This is the idea. This is called the doctrine of superimposition. So, for example, there's lots of examples. The simple example which we've talked about before, you have jewelry, you go to a jewelry store, there's nothing but gold there. The concept of a jewel or the concept of a necklace or a ring or a bracelet or any kind of an ornament that has a form, that is a superimposition on gold. Another example are the waves and the ocean. We say these are waves that are coming and going. but it's nothing but the ocean in another form only, a modulated form. So if I say that there is something separate from the ocean as a wave, that is agnan. When I can see that it is only the ocean in a different form, that is gnan, right? So this is the concept of Brahman and Maya. Okay, now, Maya, which is in Advaita, is cosmic illusion, the power of Brahman that creates the appearance of multiplicity and duality where none truly exist. So see this point carefully. It is a Shakti of Brahman. It is a power of Brahman. Even in Shikshapatri, Shri Swaminarayan Bhagavan talks about Maya as the power of Sri Krishna, Trigunatmika. That it is a power, binding power of Bhagavan Sri Krishna. Bhagavan Krishna himself says in the Gita, Daivi Esha Gunamayi Mama Maya Durattaya Mam Evaye Prapadyante Maya Metam Tarantite. This is very clear in the Gita. Bhagavan is saying there, Sri Krishna is saying there that this is my Maya. So in Advaitic standpoint, that my that is talked about, the me that is talked about in the Gita is Brahman. You can look at it that way. Or Para-Brahman. That's a more evolved understanding, but we won't leave that aside for the time being. So the Maya is the power of Brahman. We cannot answer this question why it exists. It exists. We don't know why. In Vachanamrut, Shriji Maharaj says that the Maya is Anadi, beginningless. It has always existed. The Jivatma are within Maya beginninglessly, always existed. Even Shankaracharya ji has stated exactly the same thing in Vivek Chudamani. Even though there is only one Brahman in Advait Vedantic point of view, the Jivatma is still within Maya from beginningless time. That point is in Vivek Chudamani and in Advait Vedanta also. Interesting. Interesting. I mean, it is a fascinating dichotomy there in terms of Jivatma and Brahman, although it is considered to be one. Jiva Brahma ki ekta, wo ek hi hai. Brahma Satyam Jagat Mithya, Jiva Brahmo na paraha. That is the famous verse. But nonetheless, the Jivatma is within Maya. Why? Because of avidya. So avidya is ignorance. Avidya, vidya versus avidya. So that is why in Sanatana Dharma we have upasana of Devi Saraswati. Why Devi Saraswati? Because that is the power of Mahamaya, power of Paramatma or Parameshwari, that is giving us that wisdom, jnana, to realize we are Brahman, to realize who we actually are, to realize our own natural reality. That's one way to put it. And it is also to realize that we want to awaken out of the constant false identifications. So avidya is what? The individual level counterpart to Maya, right? Wherein each individual being, fails to recognize its identity with Brahman. So it's the failure to recognize I am that same tattva, the Brahma tattva. Not recognizing that is what is called avidya. And that causes binding into Maya, into ignorance. The word translated into English is ignorance. Ignorance means what? Not seeing things as they are. Not being aware of what actually is, that is called ignorance. You see, so what is actually there? Only the Brahma Tattva. What is ignorance is not realizing it, and then because it is not realized, there is the avidya. There is now the world appearance that exists. Even though the world appearance exists, it is seen as, it is taken to be real or to be absolutely real, which is not. We know that it is temporary, but in Advaita Vedanta, it says the concept is that this is a projection of Brahman. It doesn't have any actual ultimate reality, right? So that's one part of it. And then we fail to recognize ourselves with Brahman. That is another aspect of avidya. So this ignorance sustains the belief that the world, the body, and the mind have ultimate reality, which they do not. See, the world doesn't have ultimate reality. The body doesn't have ultimate reality. The mind doesn't have ultimate reality. All 3 points are of relevance here to understand this word avidya. Again, we are just trying to make sure that our terminology is very clear in the study of Vedanta. All right. Now, the 4th point is Jagrat Avastha, which is what we're talking about, have been talking about. It's one of the 3 common states of consciousness, meaning what? The Jivatma, which is consciousness, Atma Tattva, Brahma Tattva, it is experiencing these states, the Jagrat Avastha. It is experiencing the dream state, Swapna Avastha. It is experiencing the deep sleep state, Shushupti Avastha. Despite its persistence and shared features, Advaita maintains that Jagrat Avastha is still a projection within Maya. That the entire Avastha, because look, for example, even a scientist studying the output from the Hubble Space Telescope or James Webb telescopes or other massive telescopes throughout the whole world, they're sitting in various buildings which have lots of sophisticated computers, and they're seeing all the data and pictures and so many things, right? Where are they seeing this? In Jagrat Avastha. They are inside Jagrat Avastha. Even if they're seeing millions of galaxies with very clear pictures and galaxy clusters and things like that and the outside world. Yes, it is there, no doubt. But the perception of all of that is within Jagrat Avastha. If there's no Jagrat Avastha, there's no perception of any of it. So it doesn't matter what is perceived, whether it is in this world, in this body, maybe it is in some form of samadhi, as long as there is perception of something other than yourself, then that is still within the realm of avidya. That is still within the realm of duality. That is still within the realm of Maya or projection. That's what Advaita would say. Okay, so that's the point number 4. Okay, the 5th point is the word Turiya, which we mentioned before. Turiya means the 4th. We have these 3 states. So the rishis came up with this other word. Turiya means the 4th state, which is pure consciousness. The 4th state that underlines and transcends waking, dream, and deep sleep state. Realizing Turiya amounts to liberation, moksha, wherein one discerns the unreality of all dualistic appearances. Dualistic appearances are there, but the jnani, the one who is fully awakened, the Brahmanized individual, the Brahmic sthiti individual, has gone beyond that entanglement of Maya and can discern meaning that discernment, that awakening of intelligence, it happens, intelligence and vritti, it opens into a new dimension where the dualistic appearances are seen as ultimately unreal. Even though they exist, they are not actually of any consequence. They are there. So that is called Turiyam. This is the 5th point. Okay, 6th point is called Ishwar Srishti, the creation of the Supreme Being, and the Jeev Srishti, creation of the individual mind. Now, this is a little bit more difficult to understand. Let's see if we can make some progress on that. A crucial distinction in Advaita that explains how a common empirical framework arises. Meaning what? We are all seeing the same empirical reality, same outward reality. How does that happen? That happens through Ishvara's universal manifest in Ishvar. That is Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva. Like these are called Ishvaras. Saguna Brahman. That is all. So they are also present as part of the power of Maya that manifests the universe, which allows for individualized experiences shaped by personal vasana. So each Jivatma is given the opportunity to experience Prakriti because of the causal body. So each Jivatma has a causal body. Now, even though the Jeev and the Brahman have the same substance, they're the same, but nonetheless there is Maya, nonetheless there is a Jivatma, there is at least the projection of Jivatma. In Advaita, in Vishishta Advaita, which we'll talk about later on, do want to connect that into this at some point, that the Jivatma is not just a reflection, it is the body of Paramatma. So for example, you have the sun and the sunlight. The sunlight are photons. Just good analogy to understand this. A photon. Each photon is a tiny packet of energy. How many photons are there? infinite number, billions and billions and billions. I mean, we cannot even count them. Every second they are coming out. They're part and parcel of the sun only. So in one sense, they are the sun. In another sense, they are different from the sun. But they're not completely different from the sun. So this is called Vishishtadvaita. Vishishtadvaita is qualified in non-dualism as expounded by Sri Ramanujacharya. So this sun and the photons, sun and the rays of the sunlight, this is called Vishishtadvaita. Jiva Bhuta Sanatana Manashashta Nindriyani. Right? So this verse is there in the Gita that the Jivatma, the eternal fragment of me, Bhagwan kehte in Gita, it is an eternal part of only me. That is called Vishishtadvaita. That Paramatma is a transcendent being, and the Maya is its own power, and within that Maya, this Jivatma exists as infinite number of souls, and they are not just a projection, they are actually real. This is Vishishtadvaita. We'll talk about this comparison between Advaita and Vishishtadvaita in more detail as we move along, but I'm just putting in a few points here for those people who are taking notes and keeping track of all of this. All right, so Jiv Srishti and Ishwar Srishti. We are in Jiv Srishti right now. This is like, the Jivatma, we are in this world coming through the mother and father, the womb of our mother. Body is taken, body is created. But whose body is it? Jivatma. The Jivatma is Chaitanya. It is Sat Chit Ananda. It is the Drashta, the witnessing consciousness. It is the same as Brahman. So the Brahman is also the witnessing consciousness, and so are we in our essential nature. So when we realize our essential nature, we realize we are that. Thou art that. Tat Tvam Asi. The Mahavakya. Who are you? You are that consciousness, that supreme consciousness, not this limited body-mind complex. This body-mind and senses and this experience is called Jiva Srishti. But Brahma Srishti, or Brahma Tattva, when we awaken out of the limitations of our mind, out of the limitations of the Vyavarika Satyam, the empirical reality, there is a jump into the Paramarthika Satyam. That jump from one state to another, one layer to another supreme layer, that is what the Mandukya Upanishad is talking about. Mandukya meaning the frog that leaps. The frog can live inside the water. It can live on land also. It doesn't walk, it leaps. You see, so it is a leap from the Jagrat to Sapna, Shapna to Shushupti, from all three of them into the Turyam. That is a leap, that is the Mandukya. The frog is an analogy for this. All right, so now just one more point here before we close. So remember these two words, Vyavarika Satyam, empirical reality, Paramarthika Satyam, absolute reality. Okay, so keep this in mind. The two-tiered understanding of truth. There's relative and there's absolute. The world perceived in the waking state is valid for practical purposes. We say practicality. This is our life. We are living with the world of names and forms. We have family, we have job to go to, we have money to earn, we have clothes to wear, we have shower to take. This is called Vyavarika Satyam. Advaita Vedanta is not saying, well, just ignore that and just, life is meaningless and all that. No, it's not like that. It accepts the relative reality. We have to accept it. Even as a philosophy, it accepts it. And if somebody doesn't accept it, it doesn't mean anything. One has to live in this world. You don't have a choice. You don't have a choice about living in this world. As long as there's a body, we have to take care of the body, take care of the mind, make our life better, all that. That is Vyavarika Satyam. And that is real. It's not it's not something to be ignored. But it is not ultimately real in terms of the evolved Jivan Mukta. The Jivan Mukta sees this reality, the Vyavarika, sees it as unreal because of seeing something much greater. This very simple analogy, if you're flying in the plane 40,000 feet up in the air, you're sitting with the pilot in the co-pilot seat, and what do you see from there? You don't see ants and bugs and people, and you don't see small stones, or you see this vast landmass. Assuming there's no clouds, what do you see? You don't see any people. You don't see any animals there. You don't see, maybe you cannot even see houses or anything like that. You just see massive landmass. Does that mean that ants and bugs and people and trees and mountains and these things don't exist? They do exist. They are only that landmass, but you don't see them anymore because the vision is gone so far ahead. This kind of analogy is given in Vachanamrut by Swaminarayan Bhagwan about the ship that goes into the depth of the ocean. It doesn't see the shore anymore. You see, it's just like the plane that is flying so high. It doesn't see, the small spiders and bugs and people and elephants and trees and all the things that we see on the ground. You don't see them from the 40,000 feet height. But in one sense, you are seeing them. In another sense, you're not seeing them. In what sense you're seeing them? You're not seeing them individually. You're seeing them as part of the one reality. You're seeing the greater reality within which everything exists, right? But if somebody's just living in a 1 mile area and they only see that much, they're also seeing the same reality, but they're not seeing all of it. They're only seeing there's a partial view and there's more entanglement and more trouble and all that kind of stuff is going on. The survival and the back and forth problems and these things are on the ground. If you're flying up high and you're staying permanently up there, let's say in some kind of a spaceport or something like that, or some in the sky, you don't come back to the ground. Whatever may be on the ground, it's irrelevant. You just see the ground. Even if there's a war going on down there or whatever, it doesn't touch you at all, doesn't affect you at all. You see, because you're living in a different dimension, a different height. You still see what is there. And if you want to get involved in worldly affairs, you have to come down. You see? So that is called avatar. That is the concept of avatar, that the avatars come into the world to get involved in worldly affairs, to help the world. Great sages come to help the world. That is called avatar. So this is the concept of the Paramarthika Satyam, Vyavarika Satyam. This is the seventh concept. So these are the core elements to keep in mind. These are the key ideas, 7 key ideas for today. What is the basic sadhana? Live at both levels. Live practically here. Keep the vision very high. That's all. Very simple. Keep the vision, broad vision. That is the Upanishad. Keep the Mahavakya inside the mind. Main kaun hu, main divya hu, brahma hu, anandamay hu, akshar hu. That is who I am. And continue doing seva in the world. Seva muktisya gamyatam. Sarva bhuta hite rata. I mentioned it many, many times. That bhavana, that vritti, that feeling, that understanding has to be there. And with that, we are able to live in this world in the best, balanced, beautiful way. And at the same time, keep our vision very, very high. Always keep the vision high and keep the actions very simple, very practical, in the right way, without binding oneself inside the world of names and forms. And this is the beautiful bridge between Vyavarika Satyam and Paramarthika Satyam. There is an intermediate Satyam that is called Pratibhasika Satyam, and that is a reflected consciousness. We've talked about that before, but we'll talk more about that later on. With that, let's stop here for now. Om Vakratunda Mahakaya Surya Koti Samaprabha Nirvignam Kurame Deva Sarvakarichi Sarvada Shri Ganeshaya Namaha Om Namah Shivaya Om Aim Rim Klim Chamundaye Viche Sarva Mangala Mangalle Shive Sarvartha Sadike Sharanye Trambike Gauri Narayani Namostute Ya Devi Sarvabhuteshu Buddhi Rupena Samstita Namastasya 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 Namo Namaha Ya Devi Sarvabhuteshu Shakti Rupena Samstita Namastasya 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 Namo Namaha Ya Devi Sarvabhuteshu Bhakti Rupena Samstita Namastasya 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 Namo Namaha Ya Devi Sarvabhuteshu Shraddha Rupena Samstita Namastasya 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 Namo Namaha Ya Devi Sarvabhuteshu Mahasaraswati Rupena Samstita Namastasya 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 Namo Namaha Ya Devi Sarvabhuteshu Mahalakshmi Rupena Samstita Namastasya 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 Namo Namaha Ya Devi Sarvabhuteshu Mahakali Rupena Samstita Namastasya 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 Namo Namaha Om Durge Durge Rakshini Tha Tha Swaha Om Aim Rim Klim Chamundai Vichom Glom Hum Klim Jum Saha Jwalaya Jwalaya Jwala Jwala Prajwala Prajwala Aim Rim Klim Chamundai Vichajwala Ham Sam Lam Phat Swaha Om Divalingaya Nama Urdhvalingaya Nama Anandalingaya Nama Dvadash Jyotirlingaya Namo Namaha Om Shri Radha Krishnaya Namo Namaha Om Hrim Swaha.